Hi, everybody, and welcome back to So, What's Your Process? The show where we talk with creatives from all different fields about what they do and how they do it. I'm Kyle Dalsimer.
And I'm Allie Dalsimer.
And we've got a really exciting guest for you today. Allie, do you want to tell us about who you brought us?
I do. Today's guest is a former NFL player. He was drafted by the Jacksonville Jaguars, but that is not why he is here today. He is here today because now he is the creator and host of the highly successful podcast, Marques Ogden, Get Authentic, which has over 500,000 downloads and counting. He is also an in-demand keynote and motivational speaker, an executive coach, and has been called a business luminary who helps people shift their mindset and live their lives with purpose. Marques, welcome to So, What's Your Process?
Thank you, Allie. Thank you, Kyle. How y'all doing today?
Good. We're doing great. Glad to have you. The whole show is So, What's Your Process? And I'm very interested to hear how your process has sort of shifted over the years. You've gone from being a successful athlete, playing at the highest level, to now being in a completely different field in motivational speaking. And I'm curious about your approach to those and what similarities and differences you have in sort of how you go about prepping in that way.
So for me, right, Kyle, no matter what I do, it's always discipline crushes motivation. So as an athlete, I was always disciplined to train and do the workouts and be looking at film and all these different aspects of being a high-level athlete. Today, as an entrepreneur, I am still extremely disciplined through getting my work done and taking care of our clients and our podcast that we do. Allie, that's how I met Allie. She was a guest on our podcast. Her episode right now, actually, I checked, Allie, you're right around 3,000 to 4,000 downloads of your episode since it came out. And so people are loving what you have to say. And what's really awesome, right, for me, Kyle, is that discipline is what has carried me, our company, what we do, our brand to the next level in all aspects of my life. So again, if you're listening, it's so vital that discipline, and that's really what it is, Kyle and Allie, is doing what you know you need to do that you hate doing to get the result that you know that you desire and or want. And a lot of people are dedicated, which means doing things that you love to do to get what you want. But very, very few people are actually disciplined to do what they know they need to do, but they hate doing it to get the results that they desire.
Absolutely.
Wait, now are you saying that you hate doing some of these keynote addresses that you have been doing?
No. What I've said, for example, okay, so like for me, right, discipline comes to like running to like be at my best for my craft. I absolutely hate running. But at the end of the day, when you're a business owner and you're an entrepreneur and you're coaching people and you're speaking for people, how you look is very, very important because people take you at, if you take care of yourself, you can take care of me. So running is something that I absolutely hate, but I do it now anyway. Now, again, lifting, I'm dedicated because I love lifting, so I do it anyway. But running or things of that nature, not so much, but I know I need to do them, right, Allie, to get where I want to go.
Yeah, that is super interesting, and it actually it reminds me. It reminds me of something that I heard from you when I was doing a little bit of research on you before we had this episode. There's a video of you speaking that really resonated with me, where you talked about having a dream versus having a system, and I was wondering if you could expand more on that for our listeners.
That's a great question, Kyle. So a dream is an emotion-driven type of entity or type of feeling or type of thought. So you think about what you really want. Like, it's very easy to dream, to think big, to think, I want to be in this best place. I want to have the best car. I want to have the best this. Dreaming is about putting your mind in a scenario and or situation that you desire. Okay, that's the easy part. The hard part is on the logic side, building out systems to turn that dream into a reality. So systems, for example, I just told this to Allie last week, we've been running our business, Ogden Ventures LLC, for 12 years with no system, with no type of real structure. And then we met a lady named Tara, who has helped us greatly now create systems, and we have automation, and we've got CRM usage, we've got email nurture sequence. We can actually look for different types of people we want to do business with. So again, now we have a system or a process to get what we want in life. So again, dreaming or having dreams is very important, but without systems or a plan of action to execute, then dreams become very, very hard to turn into reality.
That is fascinating, and I completely get that. That it reminds me of a lot of things in the in the theater and the film industry about having saying, oh, I want to be in this movie, I want to be in this show, as opposed to, oh, I'm doing this work, I'm training XYZ, I'm going to these dance classes, I'm going to these acting classes, I'm taking these auditions, things like that.
I have a question though. So I've been thinking about the difference with your career as an athlete versus your career as a creator and a business leader, motivator. And you mentioned the running and the lifting and the appearance and whatever, and it seems like you're doing similar sorts of athletic activities, but for a different purpose. And it got me thinking, are there things that you did in terms of your process to prepare, to become prepared for, being an athlete participating in a specific athletic event or a game, that you also do to prepare when you are doing your motivational speaking now? Or are there things that you do differently? Are there lessons that you learned that you have brought over? Or how are they alike and different?
So they are alike when, as an athlete, get ready to play a game, you do a lot of film study. You look at the opponent, break them down. You get, binders with, weekly, a game plan on how you're going to run, what plays you're going to run, where's the defense weak at, where's the offense weak at. So the coaches spend hours upon hours upon hours breaking down film to then put that film into cut-ups for players to go and look at in the film room. And you have other people that are dedicated to creating the playbooks where the guys can look at it and break them down in offensive meetings, defensive meetings, group meetings, things like that. Same thing when it comes to speaking, right? We always have a game plan or a thought about what we're going to speak on for a client based on what we call a pre-con meeting. What's the theme of the event? Who's going to be in the audience? How do you want us to take our message and tie it back to your theme? How do you want us to take our message and tie it back to what you're doing on the other side? Well, that's what it really comes down to. So I tell people all the time, the big thing you have to really think about is how can you tie in that theme? Like I tell people all the time, it comes down to understanding that your ability to process information, understand the game plan, understand if you're speaking, how you create your deck, what needs to be in it, how you're going to talk to the audience. So they're very similar in that regard. So I tell people all the time, being a former athlete taught me so much about how to actually not just do things from the physical perspective, but also from the mental perspective, how to prepare at the highest level as well.
So when you say prepare at the mental level, is that what you've just been talking about in terms of information, knowledge, and approach? Or do you also have a personal process that you use to psych yourself up or get yourself ready or put yourself in a particular zone?
So great question, Alex. So yes, that what I was talking about was more about the information, the breakdown, things like that. Now, from a getting myself in a mental mindset zone, yes, I would listen to certain music. I would have certain, rituals, certain processes, certain structures, certain things that I did to get me from being just a normal everyday guy to now here I am on a gridiron or a football field about to do battle against another human being and other human beings that are just as big, strong, fast, physical, and they have skill sets. So do I. So I better amp up my emotion and get myself ready to really go into battle and do big and great things. So yes, I would talk about that from the information standpoint, and from the other side, yes, I would also do a lot of process in that regard as well.
That is really fascinating.
fascinating.
And it actually leads me into something that that I'm really interested in, and that's sort of how you see competition. Being an athlete, obviously what you just said, having someone directly across from you as competition, but also growing up in a football household. Your brother also played football, played the same position. So I was wondering, when you go into the idea of competing, is it an idea of looking at other people and trying to be better than them? Is it looking at yourself and trying to be the best version of yourself? Has that remained the same as an athlete into your post-athletic career, or has it shifted in any way?
How does that translate into motivational speaking and executive coaching and that kind of thing? Yeah, that's a great question.
So for me, I've always been driven, which means focusing on yourself and not the competition. So I've always focused on me showing up, being professional, not just dressing the part, but showing up and showing out at a high level. I am that guy that will always do what he knows he needs to do. And that's where I tell people all the time, focusing on other people or things that you can't control is going to put you out of control or get you to a point you get frustrated, upset, things you can't really worry about. So for me, I've always been the individual to focus on myself and compete against myself. And Allie, as a speaker, as a coach, as a consultant, if I'm sitting around worrying about people like Inky Johnson is doing, or Eric the hip hop preacher, or other people that are kind of on the level that I am in that regard, right? What good is that? Like, if you're sitting and worrying about them, then you're not focusing on what you can control, which is yourself, your processes, your systems, your execution, your strategy. And you know what? This is why I tell people all the time, you must focus on and worry about what you can control. And once you do that, everything else will fade away.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Makes a lot of sense. I do wonder, as I'm listening, if you're focused on your own process and your own way of doing or being, and you've prepped for your sessions and you're now speaking, I'm interested in that creative space, right? That creative space that you are now in. And when you're speaking, obviously you're trying to share a message, but you do it through telling a story. You want to try to tell a story. And I know you have the the buffalo facing into the storm, deal with it head on. That's the crux of the message that you relay when you're motivating people. But I'm wondering, how do you decide what stories from your life or your circumstance do you share, and which do you not share? Like, what makes you decide to include something or not include something in a particular situation?
So, Allie, that comes down to who am I speaking to? What is the theme of the event? And what is the main message and or messages they want the audience to walk away with? So if I'm talking at a finance organization, right, I'll talk more about our dad being the first African-American bank manager for the Federal Home Loans Bank of New York in their DC office in 1978. I'm talking more about leadership. I'll talk more about how Jack Del Rio, who was a rookie head coach in the NFL, really helped us to shape the mindset, the process of being our own CEO. If I'm talking about culture, I'll talk more about how the teams that I played on, like the Baltimore Ravens, who had great leaders like my brother, Ray Lewis, did a great job in setting the culture. It's a perseverance or overcoming obstacles or mindset talk. I'll focus a lot more on how to thrive through the eye of the storm, how to move like a bison. So I tell our clients, yes, you should have a custom suit story. Like I always talk about my parents and the divorce and going to Howard and playing in the NFL and all these things. But what I'll do is, depending upon where I am or who hired me, I will talk more about the things in my life that I feel pertain more to the theme of the event. And that's where I struggled early in my career as a speaker. I would tell the exact same story, the exact same way, the exact same content for anybody and everybody I would speak to. I stunk horribly at actually cultivating, tweaking, and making something in that regard.
And so how do you handle, I mean, do you have a process? We talked about your process for getting to and getting through. What happens if you have, what happens if you bomb? Like what happens if you talk to a group of folks and they're like, or
Well,
I mean, how do you handle that?
So I haven't had that happen in a very long time because I've worked hard to understand. But what I will say is that early in my career, when I did that, my first Fortune 500 client was NetApp. Great company, awesome organization. My great friend Dave Nisvisky hired me. He's the head of healthcare for NetApp for the state of North Carolina. Hired me to speak for them in Chicago at Mike Dicka's Steakhouse. It was a CXO dinner. And it was a great event. I was hired as a speaker. I was dressed up. I looked the part. I gave a great 20-minute talk. I thought I nailed it. I was like, man, this is awesome. It's my first Fortune 500 client. I crushed it, blah, blah, blah. I then go to lunch with Dave the following week. He said, Marques. I said, yeah, Dave, how do you think you did? I said, oh, Dave, man, I thought it was awesome. I was on point, da, da, da. I was confident, da, 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 da. He said, okay, Mark, I have a question for you. I said, yeah, Dave, what's up? Did anybody come up to you and tell you how good you were? No. Okay. I said, oh. He said, yes, great passion, great energy, wrong topic. You were speaking to a group of doctors and nurses at a CXO dinner for healthcare executives. We didn't care. We don't care about your business failure with Caden. That doesn't relate to us. We didn't hire you for that. We brought you in to tell your stories about the NFL and the struggles with CTE and concussions and all these things. So you came in and basically told us what you thought we needed to hear. And in reality, you told us what you really wanted to tell us, not what we needed to hear. And I said to him, man, wow, I appreciate the feedback. He hired me to come back and talk to him 6 months later at another CXO dinner in Miami, healthcare. And this time I crushed it. I stayed on point with the theme, all that. Now, I do remember speaking for another client that was in 2017, which was equitable. 2017, 2018. It was the end of 2017, beginning 2018. It was equitable in New York City at the JW Marriott right across from Central Park. And I remember speaking for the client. And I remember getting feedback from the event planner. And the feedback was the following: Marques, you were really, really great with your stage presence, 10 out of 10. You were awesome with keeping us engaged, 10 out of 10. But you only gave us a 7 out of 10 with educating the audience. I said, what do you mean? You were speaking to our high level executives, financial planners. The content you delivered was more for our mid-level and junior managers. So we gave you a 27 out of 30. That did not feel good to hear at the moment. But I'll tell you what, it was the best thing to hear for my career and our brand for the long haul. So today, we always have pre-con meetings and talk to the client. Who's in there? We have a process. Who's there? What do you need? What's the level of the room, right? So we do a lot in insurance. Is it more senior, high-level people in insurance? Is it more junior or starting out? Is it an older crowd? Is it a younger crowd? What does that look like? So that's what we do now. And as a result of that, Allie, as a result of some pretty, not so pleasant feedback that I received early in our career, today, I don't make those same mistakes. And I tell our clients the same thing. Ali, I coach you. Speak to the level of the people that are in the room.
Absolutely. I think there's something really, really interesting in there about, about hearing the things that you need to hear, even when they're not necessarily what you want to hear. Because we always want to hear, oh, you were great, you were perfect. But the improvement that you can have in getting that critical feedback sometimes really does make a huge difference and make you better at your craft.
I love that the one-on-one approach, that deep dive into expectations, the approach you take to really, listen and follow through on that is also, I think that's really interesting for folks.
Absolutely. I want to ask you about and shift gears a little bit. So your NFL career ended. You had a back injury that sort of ended things for you and made you retire. And I'm wondering, because you spend your whole life training, playing through high school, through college, making it to the highest level in the world.
Every boy's dream.
Every boy's
Your dream.
Yeah, my dream when I was growing up. And then it all has to go away. And I'm wondering what your process is for dealing with having to let something that I feel like is probably so integral to not just your life, but your identity at that point, and how you sort of move on through that when something that's so central to who you are is taken away.
Rebuild and
So for me, the first 6 months were absolutely horrifying. I didn't know what to do. I didn't have a passion. I didn't have a purpose. I had no process. I had no system. So for about the first, 6 months, it was really difficult. And then one morning I woke up and said, okay, man, you have to try to do something different. Football was a great part of your life, but in reality, it's gone. You're not the same person you were. Your body can't take the abuse anymore. It's time to move on. And so what I tell people that are going through this type of struggle or inner turmoil, you got to really sit down and be honest with yourself about what do you do well and where do you feel your purpose, passion, and talents lie or align, might be a better way of saying it. And so once I figured that out, that's when I was able to get into construction. Now, of course, looking back on that, construction was not a great move, but I needed it to be part of my story to be able to make great money, multimillionaire, to then poof, hitting rock bottom, losing it all because he lost sight of his processes and systems and the most important thing in life, human capital. So that was big for me. So again, if you're listening to this awesome podcast and you're struggling with something like I did when you lose football, you lose that thing you love in life, right? I think the most important factor is to make sure that you understand that you can do a lot more. You can be a lot more. But what has to happen is you have to be okay with the fact that you are going to move on in your life.
I think a process of moving on can be really challenging for folks. I think that time you spent with the introspection and being able to dig deep and really find your motivation again and find your new purpose and find a system to help you. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
It's very impressive.
Yeah. I want to ask you about something that you touched on there. You said losing sight of the most important thing, which is human capital. And I'm wondering if you could talk more on what that means to you and yeah.
Yeah, so basically, man, with my company, Caden Premier Enterprises, I lost everything that I owned and everything that I had, my home, all my money, my business, my self-respect, everything, because I started treating people like objects and not people. I became so self-centered, so focused on external motivating factors, money, all these things that didn't mean anything. As a result of that, I became so toxic in every way you could think of. I just pushed away my best people and I treated my people like garbage. Today, with Ogden Ventures, I have a saying: when you lose everything, you appreciate everything. So as a result of that today, with our team, with our people, with our clients, I mean, Allie's a client. I told Allie, if you ever need something, or need a text or have a question, I'm there. And your mom knows this, that it's not just me saying it just for kicks. Like, we've had times where we're going to have a call, Marcus, today's just not a good day. Hey, Allie, I understand. We can push it to the next day. No problem. Hey, Marcus, can we do this way? Absolutely. We'll chat next week. I'm here if you need me. Boom. You know, hey, Allie, this is a podcast on how to build a podcast. Check this out. It'll help you and Kyle. Boom. That's the person I am today. Because in reality, human capital is the most important capital that you can ever have. It's the most important currency, or you can call it relationships. So again, I had to lose everything to appreciate everything. Now that I've been through that, I'm always able to bounce back because I understand that in life, things happen, but it doesn't mean that you can't get yourself back to where you want to be.
Yeah.
That's a message a lot of folks need to hear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I think we get blinded when there's a degree of success and all the external factors, and just remembering how important those relationships are, and you know, to simplify it, just being a good person and how far that goes. You know,
Everything.
Yeah, I'm struck by the dichotomy here. The sort of the ego and the bravado that you had earlier on, which I guess worked well in the, you know, the sports arena, very machismo kind of, you know, football, versus what you do now, which is also really trying to help people and work with them. And I am curious though, is there like a little life hack or small thing that you brought over from your early days, maybe something that your father taught you? I mean, he was definitely a leader as the first Black bank manager in DC here, which I got to tell you, that's super impressive. Is there a life hack that he taught you or that you learned somewhere else along the way that has served you? You know, maybe it did or didn't serve you during your football career, but maybe it's something that you go back to now.
Yeah, the life hack that I learned from my father was the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion before it was called diversity, equity, and inclusion. Our dad would hire whomever from all races, both genders. He would hire women, men, women and men from Pakistan, Asian, Caucasian, Latin American, younger people in their early to mid 20s. I mean, you name it, he did that. And I look back, Caden was successful because we were diverse. My problem was I ran to the ground because of my ego. With Ogden Ventures today, we are diverse. I've got team members that are from the Philippines, from the U.S., white, Black, female, younger, some in their early 30s, some a little older, and they're close to 50. I've got some people who are, one of my guys is from Lebanon, who is my website guy, to, it's the African-American, Lebanese, white, female, younger, older, African-American, you name it. And because of that, the more diverse you are, the more likely you are to be able to solve problems and solve and bring solutions to people's challenges. So my dad was a pioneer in that regard. And that's one big life hack that I picked up from him because in football it was the same thing. It was diversity was everywhere. So I would say that's a big life hack that I've kind of seen and used from him throughout my entire life.
Yeah, that's super interesting. It does strike one more thing. You mentioned all these people on your team. So you have a pretty sizable team. How do you go about making sure everybody's on the same page and everybody's feeling listened to and appreciated? Because certainly as teams grow, we've all been part of teams, or some of us have managed teams where, you're busy, you're doing things, and you don't want to spend half of your day listening to everybody's, personal issues and stories that whatever they're dealing with, because you have your own things you're trying to get done. So do you have a particular process that you use or a system that you use for trying to make sure that everybody stays happy and functional?
Yeah. So with my team, we meet as a team once a week on Mondays. Then with my team, I meet with them individually as well throughout the week. So like Abby, I'll meet with on Wednesdays, Danny Monday mornings, Danica Thursdays. Our team meeting is every Monday at 12:30 Eastern. And I go around with like, hey, everybody, here's our housekeeping notes. Then I'll go to each person. Hey, what's one win? What are you working on? What do you need help with? Let them speak. Let them ask for help. They say, hey, please focus on these items this week. Then I go to the next person and the next person, and it works out beautifully. And with the team, if we can't get some things on our team meeting in the one-on-one meetings, they can express where they're at, they need help with, and we can create a good plan of action in that regard. So very, very exciting times. Again, right, Allie? It took us a while to get here, but now we're building these processes and these systems to continue to take our dreams and have them magnified and turned into reality.
What I love most about that just there was, and this goes right into your motivation branding, is you said you start with what's one win, which allows each of your team members to have a little moment in the spotlight and let them show you something that they have accomplished. And I love that. I think that is something that everyone should have in their process and in their system when working with people. I love that. As we're coming kind of the wrap up, are there aspects to your daily life, that you find interrupt your flow in a way that is difficult to recover from? And if so, how do you handle that? Like, do you have a strategy or process for handling that? Because we all have times where, something pops up and it just, like, for me, when I'm writing, it only takes, one phone call and then I can't get back to writing. It's like, I'm still working on my process. So do you have a process for that?
Yeah. So when emails come in, I just end up flagging them and then I respond to them at the end of the day. Or if I have a few minutes in between meetings. What used to kill me was I was doing something on a call, on this, doing that, an email would come in and my OCD would have me want to respond to it right away. And now I'm like, look, it's not going to kill you, Marcus, to wait till the end of the day, or if you have a few minutes during the day to respond. And also what I started doing was I started putting into my schedule half an hour to respond to emails during certain times of the week so I don't get behind. And so again, once I got that in, it helped me to not break my concentration, my flow in that regard. So that's a great question. So yeah, because emails coming in, boop, this, bang, this, respond this. So I was losing focus. So I made a little bit of an adjustment to answer them at the end of the day. And then I put in time in my calendar to be able to focus on that as well.
Yeah, that's a great answer. It actually triggers my memory. I read the 4-Hour Work Week, like during the pandemic. And I think that was one of the things that they said, and I haven't thought about it in ages. I think that was one of the strategies that the author recommended. I gotta go back and reread that one.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's really good. Well, I have finished my questions.
I've also finished my questions.
This has been really interesting.
I think that there's such an interesting line here that you've painted, Marcus, between from the almost stoicism of your process of only controlling what's in your sphere of influence and not letting outside things really get into your head, to what you just said about not allowing things to derail you. I think that there's something really interesting there that kind of built a through line in your process of controlling what's in your power, making sure that things outside, the outside noise doesn't get to you, which I think works both in sports and in everything that you do now. And I think that that's super fascinating.
You know, what's interesting is the whole process seems to be a dichotomous one. So it's a very internally focused, self-driven, trying to make sure you're doing what you're doing, when you're doing it, as you need to do it, keeping focused, and yet also being very aware what the clients need or who the audience is, and making sure you're listening and incorporating and addressing that. So it's an interesting dichotomous balance.
And being giving. Centering
yourself
like your while being giving.
Exactly. Your process is centering yourself while being giving. I really like that. That's a good way to put it. That's super fascinating. Thank you for sharing with us and taking the time today to be with us.
Well, thank you for the offer. I appreciate you, Kyle. Alex, it's going to be a fantastic podcast. Hope people will tune in and support you all. I sure will be. And again, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Anything you'd like to plug before we head out?
Yeah, to tell people if they want to come check out our podcast, it's going to be Get Authentic with Marques Ogden. We're on every major platform, Spotify, Apple, Podbean, the whole 9 yards. We have a YouTube channel. If you have any questions, you can go to marquesogden.com or shoot me an email, marcus@marquesogden.com.
That's great. And before we let you go, one last thing. If you had 5 words of advice to give to our audience members, what would they be?
You can never give up.
Sweet.
That's perfect.
That is perfect. Thank you so much, Marques.
Thanks, Marcus.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot,
Have
guys.
a good one. All right. Bye-bye. So, Kyle, what'd you think?
I thought Marcus was incredible. You know, it's so fascinating listening to someone who got to the top of their field and then, you know, had to pivot due to things that are out of their control, and talks about those lows, but finds a way not only to get back, but to find a way back up to the heights in a completely new field while continuing to help people. I think that's fascinating. And just being on the show with him, it was so interesting hearing everything he had to say, especially, you know, he really came alive in the second half and just gave us so many nuggets of wisdom. And I think, I know me personally, there's so much that he said that I'm going to pull and try and bring to my personal life. And I'm guessing that our audience will feel the same.
Yeah, especially those last 5 words.
Mm-hmm.
What I found interesting was that his process is very much a dual process. He's very driven in terms of his inner motivation and inner goals, and very structured in that.
Yeah.
He has a very defined way that he approaches his work and approaches the people he works with. And he really sticks to that and makes himself, you know, like he said, he forces himself to run, right? Like he makes himself stick to his system, and that is part of his process. But at the same time, he is also trying to absorb as much as he can about the people that he works with, you know, from their perspective, what they want, what their needs are. And he informs his output based on that, but using the structure of his internal systems.
Absolutely.
So that's very interesting. It's a very disciplined approach.
It really is.
For a creative.
Which makes sense given his sports background, because you can't make it to that level in any competitive field, whether it's professional sports, whether it's becoming a movie star, whether it's becoming anything with a high level of competition where people grow up wanting to have the job that you end up getting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that duality that you hit on really, really struck with me, that being internalized and having that what is within my control and being very focused on self so that you can be giving to others is so telling. and so fascinating. And I
Yeah.
think is what makes him a great motivational speaker, is what helps him have such a successful podcast, and is why I think he's probably such a great coach.
Yeah, we talked about it briefly. I mentioned his the bison turning into the storm. That's his motif. That's his image. That's what he uses to try and motivate people. But as I sit here, I realize he is the bison who has turned into the wind. Like he turned into the storm, rather. And he's got an image in his slide deck where it's like this gorgeous bison is facing into this blistering, blizzardy snowstorm. And it just hit me. He is that bison who is just steadfastly facing into the storm, dealing with it, whatever comes his way.
Wow.
And I find that really interesting.
Well,
exactly.
That was a great episode.
And
we're really excited for the next episode. So tune in next week with our brand new guest. And in the meantime, make sure to follow us on social media, subscribe, and turn on post notifications for the show so you never miss a new episode with us. And in the meantime, Allie.
In the meantime, ask yourself, so what is your process?
Bye-bye.